Okay, so it's pretty easy to get started. You just go to this website here that we'll send out, download it, and then what I like to do is immediately after I've downloaded it, something I think is really important is an add-on that doesn't originally come with a program, but has been really helpful for me and for others. It's called Image Occlusion Enhanced, and basically it allows you to just cover up a part of an image and then include that in your integrate that into your decks, which I think is really seamless. So I would download that right away. And then you can start making decks. So I like to have a deck for each lecture. And then inside each class, I'll have each lecture deck. So you can put a deck inside a deck inside a deck. It's as organized as you want to make it, but this is sort of what I like to do. I'll have all of the decks for an individual test grouped together so that you can study them together if you want. So the really basic way to make cards, the easiest way to make a card is just like your basic flashcard. And so if you were to, you could ask a question on the front and then have the answer on the back. That works great. And for a lot of information, this is the best way to do it. But something that I really like is the basic and reverse card. So that means when you're studying the cards, it'll present to you both sides of the card. And so if you have a bit of information that you can ask it sort of both ways, I think that's a really, really great way to learn because it sort of integrates the information into your head in both ways versus just sort of reciting memorization. So this is sort of like how I would phrase a basic and reversed question. So I use a lot of bolding and underlining and italicizing here. Basically, you can ask a question on both sides of the card and then have the opposite side of the card have the answer underlined in the sentence or bolded in the sentence. So I think that's something that I've found to be really helpful, but who knows if that works for you. The screenshot of a certain slide, histology slide, whatever, anatomy, and then just making the front of the card, ID, whatever this is. I think it's pretty helpful too, like in gross anatomy, microanatomy, especially when they just give you like labeled images and then you're expected to bring that back on the test. I really like just screenshotting and inserting a card, having just like a basic identification kind of card. And the basic not reverse card is really good for this. The image occlusion enhanced, I sort of mentioned that add-on before. This is something I think is really, really helpful for like labeled diagrams. So you have, let's say, a picture of a bear. You can cover up using this little add-on. Once you download the add-on, it'll have this little button here. You just click on it, and it'll pop up to this screen where you can basically cover up all of these little labels. And once you do that, then you can add each covered up label as an individual card into a deck. And that works really, really well for, a single image that has a lot of different labels that you have to memorize. And maybe you're really good, you know exactly what this is, you don't know what this is. So it's easy to have this come back to you more frequently and have this come back to you less frequently based on how well you know it. So once you've made all your cards, there's a lot of other ways to make cards that I'm not sure if somebody else might talk about, but those are the big ones for me. Once you've made your cards, you can start studying. And so for these image occlusion enhanced pictures, you'll get a red box over the term that it's asking you to identify. And so you say it in your head, say it out loud. I like to say it out loud sometimes if I'm alone. I feel like goes into my head better than just than not, but however you like. And you'll hit the space bar, and then it'll show what it was hiding. And then this is sort of the meat and potatoes of Anki is rating how well you perform on a certain card. So let's say you knew these were claws immediately. Then you can hit 4 on your keyboard, and it'll come back to you in a pretty long time. If you kind of got it, you didn't really get it, you can hit good or hard, and that it'll come back to you more frequently. Or you can hit it again, and it'll come back to you very frequently. I don't like to rate a card as being easy until I really feel like I know it, because that's sort of the whole point of this thing. This is one of the cards that we made at the beginning of the slide, and you'll just hit the space bar, it'll come back, and this is sort of where I was saying, like, I really prefer to have things bolded or underlined. I feel like your eyes just sort of go to the answer automatically, and when you're going through a lot of different cards, making it efficient on the front end is, I think, really beneficial. So this is just sort of like what the big takeaways I think that I have with Anki. I really like to understand a concept before I make a card on it. And sometimes with like classes like clinical correlations or microanatomy, where it's like pretty straightforward, it's not like a complicated multi-step thing. I think I really like to make the cards in class. I think if you understand it quickly, and you can make a card in class, it saves you a lot of time on the back end, and having like a polished study product right away is it's a lot more efficient to be able to go back to that versus having to like relearn and reintegrate the material into a deck afterwards. Let's see, what else? I really like having like I try to not make a million cards. I like to like make cards that I think really test what would be tested on an exam. And so like a deck of 5,000 cards per test, I think is probably not what you want. I think take a little bit more time if you have to make like cards that accurately represent what you need to know for the test. That's pretty important. I like to avoid using pre-made decks. I know it's tempting to like just grab one from your friend, and sometimes that's helpful once you understand the material, but I think there's a lot of benefit to be had in making the deck yourself. It really forces you to like actually integrate the information into like an understandable like bite for you that I don't think you get with pre-made decks. Using the keyboard shortcuts for like for copy, paste, screenshot, changing the card type, those can all be found online, and I think that really takes a while to learn, but increases your efficiency a lot. I think it's definitely worth doing. And yeah, sometimes you'll end up with a deck that is a lot of cards, but just chugging away at it is pretty it's pretty daunting to begin with, but it goes pretty quickly. So yeah, and then just a couple of things that you definitely don't need, but are really nice. I'm a big fan of an Anki remote. I have a little one here. And it's like $20, and you can program it to certain keys on your keyboard, so you can go through cards a lot faster without having to like put your computer up on your TV or sort of sit back and do it in bed, wherever you want. But it just makes it a lot more comfortable if you're going through decks for hours and hours. A little bit of ergonomics is I think it's worth it. So yeah, if you don't want to drop the money to grab one, which is totally cool, if you have like an old Xbox controller or PlayStation controller, there's a lot of different ways you can mod those. Just search on YouTube like keyboard modifier Xbox, There's programs you can download to do that. So yeah, that's all I got.
Real quick, Matt, can I just jump in? On the add-ons, what you were saying, I think that's awesome. I also use image occlusion enhanced a lot. So I definitely recommend that for anybody. But one thing that I will mention that I kind of struggled with at first, and maybe it was just me, but when you do add any add-on into Anki, whether it be image occlusion or anything else that you go ahead and add, just make sure that you completely close down the program on your Mac before it will go in and take an effect. So if you add the image occlusion enhanced code in there, you'll want to make sure you completely close down Anki, reopen it back up, and then you'll see that button pop up where you're able to do that. Because I know for me, I was looking around for, I was like, what did I do wrong? And you just have to close the app down and then it will actually take effect and you'll be able to start using that image occlusion enhanced feature. Um, just wanted to throw that in there because that was something I struggled with.
I'll just go through some like really basic like navigating the homepage stuff. So first off, just like creating, importing, and exporting decks. Just to create any sort of card, I'm gonna move this. Just to create any sort of card, you'll go to add. One big thing that I always mess up, if you're just in like the basic, one thing I always mess up is my deck is never right. So always make sure that you're in the right deck. Because otherwise you'll be adding cards into the wrong place. And then you can just type in whatever question you have, question, and then your answer if you're just doing a basic card. And then just to create that card, there is the little add button here, but like Matt was saying, getting used to the keyboard shortcuts is really nice. So to switch from front to back, I just press tab. So that just switched that. And then to add a card, you just do command return, and that adds a card for you super fast. When it comes to exporting decks, if you ever need to export a deck, you can always go to this gear right here, and then hit export, and then just go through all of it, save it to your files that way. And then to import a file, you'll go down here to import, and then you can find whatever Anki you have and import it that way, and it should just bring it all up. Another thing that's really important is syncing. You always want to make sure that you're hitting the sync button. This will just make sure that if you have Anki on multiple devices, like I personally have it on my phone and my iPad, which I highly recommend, because then you can do Anki basically anywhere. Like I'll do it at the gym and stuff like that just on my phone, and it doesn't look weird. So if you have it on multiple devices, syncing it will just make sure that it's accessible on all of those devices and that you start at the same place for all of them. The app is, I believe, like $20-ish for iPhone and iPad, but I highly recommend it. And then the last thing is organizing decks, which Matt talked about a little bit, but I also do the same thing. I organize everything by lecture. But I've found that numbering them also really helps, because otherwise it'll do it alphabetically. So I like to number each one of my lectures. I always put a 0 in front too, just because I don't know if I have one in here. Sometimes if you have like more than 10 decks, if you start with like just a 1, it'll move this 10 up here instead. So that's why you want to have like 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, just so it'll organize it like that.
So just like everyone has been mentioning so far, I like to think of Anki as basically a file system. You have basically each of these guys on the outermost layer represent a drawer in your file cabinet. As you go in, you have subfiles and subfiles, just subsections on subsections. So if you want to browse for a certain card, I typically will try to, this is if you wanted to search for a specific card, say, you need to make a change to something, or you want to just go over a certain subsection of cards without actually going in and reviewing them in the review system. you can use this little browse button up here. If you do just go into this, click this browse button from the main menu, it's going to go into your most recent deck that you are in. So if you click in here, you can see up top it says 145 cards selected. That's selecting my most recent deck that I was actually studying or had clicked into. So say we wanted to look at something in microanatomy, we want to click on this microanatomy button in the least, because now it's going to select our microanatomy topics. Again, since you are in this kind of file cabinet type system, if you do click the overarching microanatomy file and then you click browse, it's going to pull up all of your cards that you have in that folder at that time. So if we wanted to go into, say, digestive glands and search for a card in here, you'll want to click on that. When we click browse, you can see we're down to 171 cards as opposed to the 380 that we had before, because it was the entire thing there. So now that we're in our browsing section, we have all of our cards listed out. There is some color coordination going on here. Basically, this guy right here just means that I've suspended some cards, and I'll talk about that a little bit in just a minute, but that's what this guy is saying. As you scroll through here, you can go ahead and scroll through your cards. This is what image occlusion cards will look like when you go through the browser. So you can see we have a certain image here, and then we'll have all of our little banners down in this little question mask area. This is where we're going to actually have the coverings. So it is kind of hard to say you covered something and you want to get rid of a card on an image occlusion, you want to delete a certain one. It can be a little challenging to find which one you actually covered, but if you look up here, you can see, say up on the top right, looks like we have a mask here that's most likely pertaining to the serous cells there. So you can kind of try to piece it together, but that's the way those image occlusion cards will work. If we scroll down, we can see we have our other cards as well. So say we're at the top and we wanted to search something for mucins. So we're up here, we just go in. What you can do is click into this little search bar and type in mucins, and then go ahead and hit return, and it's going to go ahead and search for that. So we'll be able to find it. So if you want to search for cards with a certain keyword, you can go ahead and do it that way. The only thing is, if you do go ahead and delete that and then research, it is going to go back to your entire overarching library. So you'll have to go back and select your specific deck, unless you actually go in and designate in that search bar that you're wanting for that one individual deck. Something else that's kind of nice in here is you can actually manage your tag system in here, which is something that I do a little bit, not a ton, but I do sometimes, and I'll go through an example for that. So if you guys remember a couple weeks ago when we were going through cranial nerves 1, Dr. Orr was telling us that we should go ahead and start getting familiarized with the certain entrances and exits for the cranial nerves. So, foramen rotundum, foramen ovale, so on and so forth. And he said it would be a good idea to go ahead and look through that before our next class. So this is an instance where I like to use that tagging feature, because if you go ahead and, like Matt said, I like to make my Anki decks in class. And if you do that, you might get, for me, I normally will get about 80 to 200 cards, depending on the size of the lecture. It can be a lot to go through there and try to figure out, okay, I need to study this particular card. So to find the cards that you actually want to study before your next class, I use that tagging feature. So let me go in. Sorry, I think I selected the wrong deck. I'm gonna go into intro and head and neck, just because that I know that it is in here. And right after the lecture, essentially what I did is I went into that browse feature, just like we had shown. And I went ahead and I have flagged this particular image, because this is what he was talking about. It shows all of our exits out of the skull there for our different cranial nerves, and what cranial nerves pertain to what bony entrance / exit. So what I did in class is I just went ahead and made our normal image occlusion card, like Matt was talking about. Took a screenshot of that, put it into image occlusion, masked each one of these boxes, and that was it. But in order to go in and study these specific cards directly out of this deck, what I did was I had flagged them, and then I went down to this little tags box at the bottom of this editor, and I just labeled it cranial nerve basics at the bottom. So you'll see if I scroll through each of these cards, each of them is tagged with cranial nerves basics. So now what we can do what I had done before we go into that next class, and this can be used in any way you want to, is if you want to go ahead and study those specific cards, we'll go back from our main screen. We can go ahead and go into our deck, go into our intro to head and neck, And then we can do a custom study session. So as you can see, didn't do a lot of reviewing gross anatomy this weekend. I have plenty of anatomy cards to review. And if we went ahead and clicked study now, it would just throw us right into our sequence of cards from our entire deck, which is great. That's what we want normally. But if I want to study those specific cards for the entrance or the bony exits for the cranial nerves, that can be a little monotonous to get through there. What we can do instead is actually go into this custom study button right here and pull this up. It'll pull up a different menu, and we can do study by card state or tag. What I'll typically do is I'll click this all cards in random order button. Don't reschedule, just because if you do the reschedule, when you review the cards, it's actually going to change those time intervals for when the card will be reviewed again. Or if you do the don't reschedule, it stays in that interval that you had done before. But if you want to change the time interval and you want to say, I'm studying it now, I don't need to study again tomorrow, I'm good seeing it again in 3 days or whatever, you can definitely do this button as well. You can then click choose tags. And when we come to this screen, you'll see we have the option to select tags to include or exclude. So in this deck, for this particular case, I only have that one tag for the cranial nerve basics, but you could do as many tags as you want. You could do hard cards. You could tag cards as this is, the glossopharyngeal nerve or the, trigeminal nerve, whatever you want to do. You could do as many tags as you want. But if we want to study this one, we'll just go ahead and check this little require one or more of these tags. And then typically it will be unhighlighted. You can see that I had studied this before. You could just click it, see that it's highlighted now, and then hit OK. And now we're down to 8 cards in a custom study session. So when we go ahead and hit study now, it's only going to pull those 8 cards that we had already done. So we can see that, we got this card, we can go ahead and review it, move on, and so continue through that review. So it's kind of a nice feature just to be able to review the cards that you want to review at a certain time. The only other thing that I'll mention about that is if you do any kind of custom study session, it will create a new folder on your main screen called custom study session. When you review the cards, it's going to automatically send those cards right back into its original deck. So that's kind of nice to know. Your cards will continue to decrease out of this area. If at any point you're done with your custom study session, say you don't finish it and you just want to be done with it, you can always delete this custom study session from the screen. It's not going to delete your cards that are in there. It's just going to send them all back into their original deck. So if we hit delete here, we'll see it says 0 cards deleted. That custom study session is gone, and all of those cards are back in the intro to head and neck area there. So just a kind of nice feature there for if you do want to go in there and study a specific set of cards. The last thing that I'll kind of mention on this element here, as I mentioned previous when we were in the browse screen, there were some suspended cards that were showing up yellow or that kind of goldish tan color. So basically what that is when you're reviewing, like Matt said, I also recommend that you only make the amount of cards that you think are going to be very necessary. But since I do make them in class, sometimes I actually hammer out some cards that I'm just like, there's no way that's ever going to be on the test, or I really don't need to review that, but I had a card already for it. So there's a couple ways to handle that. Typically what I'll go ahead and do is say I'm reviewing and this card comes up here and I say, you know what, I really don't need to be looking at this card. I don't think that the abducens ocular muscle innervated is going to be on the test. What you can go ahead and do is click this more button. And you have a few different options here. So you can suspend the card, you can delete the note, which is going to delete the card itself completely. If you suspend the card, it's going to take it out of circulation and just leave it in that browse section for you to go in and edit, delete, do anything to, but it's just going to take it out of circulation for the time being until you actually go in and unsuspend the card. The other nice thing about this more menu, I'm just going to digress real quick, is this does show some of those shortcuts there that Matt and Nisali were talking about earlier. So we've got here, it looks like @ is going to be our suspend card shortcut. So if you go ahead and just do the @ symbol while you're reviewing, it's nice and quick. We wanted to suspend this card, @ and the card is suspended and we move on to the next card. Now, if we go up into our browsing, that card is going to show up as suspended when we go into that deck. I'll go ahead and unsuspend that. As you can see, if you just do Command Z on anything, it's going to undo exactly what you do. So that's kind of a nice shortcut as well. Command Z will undo anything that you have done. So that's to suspend a card. If you wanted to delete a card on the spot, you can also delete, Command backspace, it looks like, and you're good to delete that one. Another nice thing to know is how to bury a card. And essentially what burying is it's kind of like an intermediate version of suspension. So if you bury a card, it's going to take that card out of circulation just for the rest of that day. So say you're reviewing a new deck, like it looks like I have all kinds of dental materials cards that I haven't even started learning yet. And you're reviewing and it, for some reason, gives you a really weird sequence where it's asking you about something way more complicated than you've studied yet. What you can actually do is go ahead and bury the card. So we'll just click bury card, or you can do the equal sign. And it says that that card is buried. So essentially that card has been taken out of circulation for the rest of the day, but it will start coming back through our review session starting tomorrow. Now, let's say you study some more and you're like, okay, I'm ready for that card now. I have all the information that I need and I want to see that card again. If you go back to your main review screen, you'll see now there's this unbury button that pops up on the bottom here. So if it's that same day, we haven't reached tomorrow yet, and that card isn't automatically unburied, but you're ready to review it now, you can go ahead and click that unbury button. And now that card is going to show back up in your review sequence. So just a kind of nice way, if you aren't quite ready for something or you don't like the order that it's showing you right now, you don't have to go ahead and just, you know, say that you're good on it or say that you're not good on it to get to the next card. You can just go ahead and bury it for now and then unbury it whenever you're ready. I'll do Cloze first because that's kind of simple. And basically what Cloze is it is a fill in the blank type card that Anki allows you to make. So we'll just go into a random deck here. I'll take this out later. But if we go into microanatomy and say we go into our ad, just like Matt was showing earlier, and Nisali, we have our type of card here, just like they were showing. So we have basic, we have Cloze, we have image occlusion enhanced, all of that stuff is right here. So this is where you can select what kind of card you want to make. So if we're on basic, you can just go ahead and go to Cloze, select that, and we're here and ready to rock and roll. So the Cloze card is a little bit different. And I don't know, I know some people do it a little bit differently than myself, but let's just say that we want to, this is a video demonstrating okay, so if you want to make a fill in the blank card, you don't have to just go in and write out the sentence, put a bunch of underscores, and then go to the bottom on a basic card, type in what is going to be in the blank, and make the card. Essentially, with the Cloze feature, you can go ahead and spell out your entire sentence. And then what you can do is go ahead and highlight the different areas that you want to blank out. So in this sentence, let's say we want to blank out demonstrating. You can go ahead and highlight it real quick. And then these two buttons are going to be your friends here. So this is going to be Cloze deletion new card and Cloze deletion same card, which is a kind of cool feature there as well. So if you go ahead and click this button after the highlight, it's going to go ahead and put this in these little brackets with this C1. That is going to make this card blank out. So when we review it, it's going to say, this is a video blank with a little blue bracket, how to use the Cloze feature in Anki. And then when you go ahead and flip the card, it's just going to reveal the demonstrating in blue. Another nice thing about this is if you had a really long sentence where you wanted to blank out a bunch of different elements of the sentence, you can go ahead and highlight another element here. So let's say we take out Cloze, and you have the option here. So we can either click this Cloze deletion same card button, which is the one without the plus, and that's going to create another blank. But we can see here it says C1. That's just telling us that when we go ahead and add this card, it's going to make one card with two blanks. So you'll end up getting one review card with the demonstrating blanked out and with the Cloze blanked out. Say that we didn't want that. We just wanted two separate cards with one blank on each one. What we could go ahead and do is just highlight that, click this other deletion button with the plus on it, and now we'll see that it's going to be C2. So now we're going to get two separate cards with a single blank, where on card number one, Cloze is going to appear just like normal, and it will just be blanked out for demonstrating, and vice versa for the other card. If you have a really complicated, say, you know, one blank on one card, but two blanks on another card, you can highlight again, and then we can either go ahead and click this plus, that'll make a completely new card, C3, or we can click this again, and it's going to default to C2. So that is going to do, again, one card where we have the one blank for demonstrating, and then a second card where we have a blank for close and a blank for Anki. Sometimes I do these and they can get a little bit complicated. So you can actually go in and say you clicked the wrong button. If you wanted to actually make this a third card, you can just quickly go in and delete this 2, switch it to a 3, and now it's going to make you a third card. So if you accidentally click the wrong button anywhere, just change the number by the C and you'll be able to assign which card you want it to be on. So we'll just go ahead and add those real quick. Perfect. So when we go in and review these cards now, we're going to see that this will be how it will show up. So these little brackets indicate that we have a close. And then when we do the review, it's going to pop up and we're able to go ahead and indicate our strength level on that card. So kind of a useful feature there. With the image occlusion, the nice thing about that one is we don't really need to switch over between these different card types. Matt was kind of showing this on his card, where his PowerPoint where he was demonstrating. We can actually just paste directly into the basic card and then click this little image occlusion button and it'll take us into our editor. So let's say we want to do an image occlusion on this slide here that we're going to be looking at a little bit later. Typically what I'll do for my image occlusion cards is I'll actually connect my iPad and my Mac together. I'm sure a lot of us know how to do that already. But if you connect your iPad to your Mac via the charging cable, it will connect them together. And then what you can do is you can go into your settings, go into displays, just in case anyone hasn't seen this before. You can go ahead and click this plus and then click your iPad, and that's going to basically set up your iPad as a second monitor. Then in Notability, when I'm already in class, I can just go in and use the cropping tool in Notability, circle any of the images and hit copy. And then you can literally just come over to your little box here in Anki, Control V is paste or right click paste. And that image will paste in and you're ready to go here. Since I don't have my iPad up, I just took a screenshot of that image. And I'm just going to go ahead and click this. This is another way you can do it. If you take a screenshot on your computer, it'll come up here as screenshot. You can open it here. And this is going to be what the image occlusion editor looks like. So right here, we can see that this is our masking tool. So this is going to be how we can go ahead and make those cards. So you can literally just click and drag. That's one card. We can click and drag. That's another card, so on and so forth. If at any point you need to edit a specific mask, say you didn't get it in the right position or something like that, just click on it. It'll give you these boxes. You can shrink it. You can enlarge it. If you click this little green guy, you can move it at all kinds of angles, stuff like that. The only thing is if you do start editing a specific mask, it does take you to this selector tool. So you're going to actually have to go over to the left again and click your masking tool again to be able to start dragging, because otherwise if you click this and then you start dragging again, it's not going to do anything. So just make sure you click that masking tool again and you're good to start masking those cards up. That's really all there is to it. The nice thing, similar to the close feature down here at the bottom, is you do have the option for these image occlusion cards to hide all of them and have yourself guess one, or hide a single mask and have them guess one. So in certain instances, say for the cranial nerves or something, you want to be able to see what the bony entrance is called before you have to name that nerve. I might do the hide all guess or hide one guess one, because then all the other masks aren't going to be present. There will just be one mask. You'll be able to see the rest of the image, and you'll just be able to go and get some other information from there. Where if you don't want to see maybe that this is the left subclavian and left carotid, because that might tell you that, this is obviously the right, then you can go ahead and click the hide all guess one, so that you can see down here it says 6 cards were added, so it created all of those at one time. And then when we go in and review, we'll just go in and review these. Now we can see that we did the hide all guess one. They're all going to be masked when we go through and review. So like Matt was saying, the red one is the one we're targeting. All of the rest of these guys are masked. So that's kind of the way that all works out.
I have some questions for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, Chase?
Okay, let me see here. I have to share my I'll have to show you what I have on my
Yeah.
MacBook because it looks nothing like your guys' Anki. So I
Yeah.
might have to re-download it or something. Okay. So is it supposed to look like that? I don't, it's kind of blurry, but
So I think that's the Anki app,
okay.
which is a little bit different. So if you go and just Google, or go to Safari or whatever browser you use and Google Anki Mac download, you'll actually want to go to their website and download the version off of their site
Okay.
because it is slightly different. So if you go
Gotcha.
there, it should pop it up, and there's a little download code. It downloads it in there, and you'll be good to go there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I had no idea. Because I think
yeah.
they gave us the Anki app and I was like, oh, so that's what we use. But
Yeah, so they downloaded one on my iPad as well. It was a different Anki app on the iPad, and
okay.
I also use the iOS version. Yeah, Matt just put that in the chat. Thanks, Matt. That's great. The app they downloaded on the iPad initially was not the correct one either. So when you, if you do want to get the iOS version for your iPad or your iPhone, it's going to be a blue star, and on the App Store, it's literally just called Anki. That's all it is. So make sure you get the one with the blue star, black background. That's the correct iOS app, and it looks the exact same as the Mac app when you do download it on there.
I
Okay,
think the
great.
iPad app is, I think it's like $20 to download.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
exact.
the best $20 I ever spent. I mean, if they're gonna charge us $5,000 for textbooks we won't use, like for me, spending $20 on that and $20 on a controller, best use of my money compared to the textbooks.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
could definitely see that. So when you guys are making them in class, because this is the thing that I've worried about. I totally get doing it in class because then you have that set ready. So when you are ready to study, you don't have to go making it. You're not spending time doing that. Do you feel like you're still active? That my worry is I'm not actively learning. I'm just so focused on like making these cards that I wouldn't listen as well. Like, do you struggle with that? And then also, are you able to finish the majority of them in class, or do you have to kind of go after lecture and just finish them up?
Yeah, for me, I don't know how you guys feel as well, but for me, that's why I like to have the notability slides or whatever you have the slides up on your, for your workflow. For me, I download the slides on the notability, and I like to have them up there not only for the image occlusion side of things, but because I always do just kind of default to, if I have to miss making a card in class to, write down an annotation or something that I'm not understanding, I will definitely do that. And something that I do in my own system is, if there's a slide, for example, say there's a lecturer who waits until the very end of class and crams everything in at the end, and we're going through like, 5 slides in a single minute. What I'll do is I'll just go through and like put a certain color star on those slides that I didn't get to make the flashcards off of, just so I can say, okay, I'm not going to these flashcards in class. I'm going to sit here, listen, take the notes that I need to take, and then I'll come back after class. But that way I know what slides I still have to make flashcards on and what slides I don't. That's kind of the way that I do it, just to make sure I don't prioritize flashcards over getting what I need to, exactly like you were saying.
I agree. I think like the goal that I think both Diego and I have in that strategy is to have like a study resource primed and ready to go. So like the next time you want to revisit the content, you're revisiting it through a portal that's like exactly what you need to know and nothing else. So like I think there's a lot of efficiency in that. In making the cards, again, I think like keyboard shortcuts are key. Like copy, paste, screenshot, and then the keyboard shortcuts to like fly through what kind of card you're making, to the keyboard shortcut to like enter the command return to enter the cards into the deck. Like if you learn those, you'll get really fast at it. And then it's honestly like kind of like you can do it subconsciously. Like I feel like I'm able to like make cards and also kind of like be listening with like 60% of my brain to like what they're saying, and like you get Dr. Deal like giving you guys like a hint, this is going to be on the test, like then I can go back and either, like Diego said, star the slide and revisit it like right after lecture, or like, make a card right then and there. Sometimes I like to stay like 2 slides ahead in lecture. I still feel like I'm paying enough attention to the lecturer that if they say something really important, like I can throw that in a card right away. And yeah, I would say learn the shortcuts, and then you become so much faster that you can pick what works for you.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a different boat because I tried the whole like making flashcards during class, and like you said, Chase, like I felt myself not paying as much attention as I needed to the lectures, and I learned that I needed to like give my full attention to the lecture, and then I go back and I personally go through the lecture, just the slides first, and then I'll go to Anki. So I don't make a ton of my own cards unless it's for like clinical or something like that where you don't need to fully pay attention. But I usually like I'll go to lecture, I'll review the lecture at least once, and then I'll go to Anki. And so I'll import a lot of like old Quizlets and stuff like that and just review those after I've gone through the lecture twice. So I think that's kind of like up to you. If some people find a lot of benefit to making the cards themselves because that's a way that you can study. But I personally, I have to like actually see all of the material, like just seeing cards like after I've made them once is kind of overwhelming for me. So I personally have to go through everything first, and then I'll import either like Anki's people sent, or I'll import Quizlets using it's the same thing that Jonah sent once in like the study materials group chat. I can show that as well. So for importing Quizlets, I just find any Quizlet. This is, I think, like a D3 or D4's Quizlet. All you have to do is copy the link and then go in, and then you can go to your tools up here and then import from Quizlet, paste it. You can choose to download the audio or not. I personally don't love the audio, so I don't download it, but some people like to listen to their decks, like if they're driving or something like that. But yeah, you just press import deck and it'll just pull it up for you. Sometimes this will do the front and the reverse deck, so for that you might have to go in and suspend some cards. So I think this one actually put in the reverse as well, so you can kind of see like there's some reverse cards and these don't really make sense. So one thing that I like to do is I'll just hit card, and that'll organize it so all of the reverse are together and all of the normals are together, and I'll just select all of the reverse cards. So you select the top one, hold shift, select the bottom, and then you can just do Command J and suspend all of those. So that pretty easily brings all 92 cards from Quizlet into there. And then for multiple choice, this is something that I'll do sometimes if I just want to review like sorry, I'm trying to find this. If I just want to like review quiz questions, especially for anatomy, I've seen this to be kind of helpful. I'll do the multiple choice option, and so there is an add-on for this. I'll send it in the chat as well. But this has the code to add it on, but it also explains how to do it, but I'll just go through it real fast as well. So you have a lot of different fields, so it's kind of intimidating at first. But you'll start off with your question, so you can say like, what color is the sky or something. And then For question type, you can say 1 for multiple choice, and then you'll have all of your different answer options. So I'll put like blue, green, red, black. And then here in your answers, this is where you're going to put which ones are right and which ones are wrong. So for this card, only the first option is right. So I'll do 1 and then a space. And then you'll put zeros for all of the wrong ones. And so then once you add this, you can go in and so now you're able to actually click it. So if you do that, press the space, you got 100% correct. But let's say, oh, this is wrong. Let's say you click 2 of them, it'll show you which one was selected wrong. And based off of that and how you did, you can select like how big or small you want your interval to be for that. You can also do it with multiple correct answers as well. So, what color is the ground? I don't know. I'm making random questions here. So you can do like gray, brown, I don't know. And so for that, you can just change one of these to a 1 and then do it. And so once you do that, once you have this, you can select both of them and then do it, and it'll show all of them as correct. What's also really nice about this too is I usually just put the correct answer as the first one, and I'll have this option pinned. So when I keep making cards, it'll always have like the first one as the correct answer. But when you actually have the answer choices here, it'll go and shuffle all of the different answer choices for you too, which is really cool.
I think if there's no other questions, there's one more thing I wanted to show. This is not a big deal, but just something so it's on the video if anyone ever watches or wants to reference back to this. I'm just going to share my screen one more time and just show you this other add-on. I don't have the code, but if you search for it, just do a quick Google search, it'll bring it up. And it's kind of useful if it's, again, not a huge deal, but if you just really don't like the space bar and then 1, 2, 3, 4 for while you're reviewing, this button kind of, or this gives you a little bit different customizability there. So again, if you go to your Anki and you go up to tools and add-ons, the add-on is called customize keyboard shortcuts. And basically it allows you to just change what buttons mean what in different areas. So if you go into it and you go to config, it's going to bring this up. It looks a little intimidating, but some basic ones that are really easy to switch. If you go into the editor and we go to add card, which is somewhere in here. Anyways, I can't find it right this minute, but essentially what I've done, oh, here we go, confirm add card. So what I've done is as they said, initially it's command return to go ahead and add a card. Not a big thing, but I just really like hitting the tab button a lot and then hitting return. I don't like reaching for that command button. It's kind of weird, but just annoying to me. So when I'm adding a card, if we go to add, and say we're adding that basic card, instead of having to do command return, I can just go ahead and type, tab, type, and then tab down into the next level and hit return, and it's going to add your card instead of having to go ahead and click command return to add your card. It just makes it a little faster for me when I am adding the cards. The other nice thing, if you do go into there, is when you are doing your reviewer. So if we go into config and we go into the reviewer, you can actually change those reviewer choice buttons. So you can say if you wanted to do like VBNM, so you're nice and close to that space bar, you can change those option choices so you're not having to reach all the way up to the 1, 2, 3, and 4 key while you're reviewing your massive deck of cards. if you don't decide to go for one of those remotes. It just gives you that customizability to change those buttons to what you want them to be, and just makes it a little more convenient. So again, customize keyboard shortcuts. If you just Google it, it's another add-on code. You can add it in there and then restart the Anki, and you can change up what the buttons mean, just so it makes it a little easier for you.
One more thing before we go. I think it's worth mentioning, if you do get one of these remotes and you have like a little program running in the background that is changing the keystroke to whatever Anki key you programmed it to, you'll need to turn that off if you want to run Respondus Lockdown Browser. I found out that the hard way during the test when I couldn't get the browser to load. So turn that off in the background before you open Respondus. Probably give it a go the day before a test just to make sure it works.
You know, for anyone here or anyone watching the video later, if you ever have any questions, I know Anki can be kind of intimidating, but definitely feel free to ask any questions or reach out anytime. I'm definitely not an expert on it, just kind of figuring it out as we go, but definitely can help out in any way that I can. So yeah, just let me know.